I am a big fan of stories and I'm a big fan of writing. I really enjoy writing, and I think stories are very powerful. And I think out of the vast majority of stories that are there, it's like, what do you want to use your stories for? So if you see the stories that I have curated so far in the Peoplenovate platform, these stories are stories that are meant to challenge a certain aspect of workplace.
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Helping People Perform podcast. Delighted to be joined today by lawyer and problem-solving enthusiast and creator of the Peoplenovate platform. So welcome to the show, Saniya Sharma. Welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It is my pleasure to be here.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, believe me. Really appreciate you coming on board and love to hear about the story, want to hear about peoplenovate.com and what you're doing there and some of the great work. But before we do, I'd love to hear a bit more about your background in terms of what's got you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. I'd be delighted to tell you my story as to who I am and what am I doing. So, as you've said, I'm a lawyer, but I would say very much my life so far has been like the project child of a family in India who decided to become a lawyer uh, because of many reasons. One amongst them was, of course, doing good in the world. And once you embark on that path of becoming the project child, the model child, and you reach your land of dreams and you start working it, there comes a point when you start becoming a bit more self-aware and start questioning things around you in terms of what am I doing, why am I doing it, and what has led me today to where I am, what has helped me in my journey, where am I going. So I reached one of those points, especially during COVID, which put a lot of things in perspective for me. And I think being a lawyer is not easy. It's a very high pressure job. And the journey of becoming a lawyer has also not been very easy. So at workplace, when you start coming face to face with work and all the stress and the anxiety that it brings with it, you then start thinking, okay, like, do I have the right strategies in place to really perform to the best of my capability, or do what I'm doing to the best of my capability? And what do I need more to perform better in a way that is sustainable and doesn't cause me that much stress, anxiety? And that really prompted me into what I would say doing a lot of journaling and flash notes. So this flash noting made me write a lot of flashes in my diary as to what was working for me, what was causing me stress. It was a very good process of discovery. And what I realized was that throughout my journey, the one thing that had really helped me was nurture in whatever form it came, but mostly by connection with people, through relationships with people. And that some way became the basic idea behind the Peoplenovate platform, which is about celebrating being human. And because we're talking about people innovation, it's about celebrating being human at workplace, that is seeing yourself and people around you first as humans, um, celebrating them for who they are before you start seeing them as their job. So it's very much like connecting emotions and logic and using that connection to discover the best in yourself and the best in other people, and infusing that principle of nurture to help each other perform better, how you can build yourself up and in the process build other people up. So that became very much the genesis of the idea of peoplenovate.com. And the way that I started doing it, it's a recent platform. It's just been like about like less than 2 months old. Uh, it's through storytelling and a lot of blogging at the moment. So, and I've picked up a lot of themes that I felt need to be talked about at workplace. For instance, you really need to be so perfect all the time. Like, do I really need to always act like a Stanford duck? Or is it okay for me to come to workplace one day and say, hey, I don't have it all together. Like, I really need you to talk me through this. And should we normalize that? So, what are the kind of things we need to start normalizing, talking about? And what are the kind of things we need to start calling out on? What is perfection and what are these standards? So, it was very much those themes that Peoplenovate tries to talk about. And the reason I'm doing it through storytelling and blogging at the moment is because bloggers is for knowledgeable people who was very much like, I want to read facts. Stories are for people like me who learn the hardest lessons and the most strongest lessons by reading stories. The purpose being that when you read something as a story, it resonates more with you, validates you, your thinking, makes you feel normal about yourself. Like, okay, it's fine. I'm thinking like that. It's totally fine. There's a story which validates my thinking. And that makes me understand this person better, or I understand this dynamic better. Okay, now I get the hang of it. So that's what the project is experimenting with at the very initial stages. But of course, the dreams are big and the plan is more elaborate. So, but we'll get to it as one the features keep unfolding.
Brilliant. And so, I mean, lots to unpack there, and we'll dive into the Peoplenovate piece in just a second in a bit more detail. But in terms of, I guess your background and that drive there. So, what was it about being a lawyer? You know, was that your passion? Were you mentioned before that the sort of family pressure in some ways to go into certain areas. Was law always something that you wanted to get into, and what sort of law did you get into in the end?
So I don't think there was family pressure. I think my family, in the sense, there was no pressure to become a lawyer, but there was always, I felt like this expectation that you had to be great, or like be perfect, I would say. And I think many people face that. Like for me, I think it stemmed more from the fact that, being the eldest child of the family, I had to set like a good example for my sisters and for my parents in general. I think when parents have the eldest child, they want to make that child the best project that they have, because they're like, everything about this child must be perfect, absolutely. The reason I took up law was because I felt that I was initially split between the medical profession and the profession as an artist. And I felt that law kind of combined both of that to a very large degree. Like it's noble in its way. You're solving problems, right? But it also has got a storytelling element to it, in the sense that at the end of the day, you are dealing with people and the stories. Um, and I very much started out with the objective of getting into corporate law, not like the story element, but I think also you feel like there's a certain uh, charm attached to being at that elite place, or at least that's how you understand the market, right? And I hadn't seen Suits or anything, to be honest. Like it wasn't anything like that. It was just the case that it seemed like the right thing to do at that point. When I came to London and I started lawyering, I must say that the practice of law is very interesting. Law in itself is super interesting. What started making me conscious of the practice was the points that come up, which your attention away from the practice in itself. And those are points such as the emotions that were arising in me whilst I was doing the practice, like the constant stress, the fear, and with the fear of, oh my God, the high stakes, anxiety, the fear of, there was of course the fear of perfection with my family, but of course there's another fear of perfection when you are doing that high stakes kind of work, because you're held to such high standards that when you are working, uh am I messing this up, or like what am I doing, what are the standards, how is everyone getting it all together, because you are not very aware of what happens in the background, because that's not a conversation that you are privy to. The more in my break, what I've understood is that everybody is working super hard. Everybody has tough days. Everybody, it's game of like blood, sweat, and tears. But those blood, sweat, and tears are not discussed in public. So when you are facing a tough spot, or when you are facing a challenge, you can very much feel that, oh, is it just me, or what's happening here, or what am I doing here, what's happening? And somehow that got to me being like, okay, then this needs to be normalized a bit more, talking as to what the profession is, because it doesn't have to be that stressful. I'm sure there's like better ways of handling the stress that you're doing. Of course, there was that. And the second, of course, was trying to find a bit more purpose in what I was doing. I think there was a lot of purpose in you trying to become something. So the process of becoming a lawyer was very purposeful. But when you start lawyering in itself, I think I am at least somebody who's very purpose oriented. So I was struggling to find a connection to my bigger purpose, like a sense and meaning in what I was doing. So I went and read a lot of things, a lot of articles as to like why I was feeling this way. And then you come up with like this whole literature that different things motivate different people. And that's when I was like, yeah, so it's a unique thing about me, and it's something to be really proud of. Like, okay, this is who I am, and this is what motivates me. And because this is not discussed that openly, you start thinking, okay, like, am I different? But once you understand what triggers you, the next step is to start finding ways to realize that purpose through the work that you do. So I guess a lawyer who recognizes that, oh, I'm very purpose driven and it really matters to me how my work ties to the bigger purpose I achieve. The best way to help that kind of lawyer perform would be to tell them, this is the bigger mission that we are achieving through the work that we are doing. See how what you're doing ties to this mission. And then the lawyer suddenly like, oh, I get it now that this is what I'm doing. And that's how it's tied up. And that's enough for me to start motivating. So knowing that about myself, acknowledging that and celebrating that fact about myself has transformed my mindset. Because now whatever I do, I try and connect it to my broader purpose. And that really changes the way I view things, which is so different.
Yeah. What would you say your broader purpose is?
It's a very, very tricky question. I think the question of purpose evolves, but I can tell you what I have really found out that I truly, really liked to. And that's in any way possible, build people up. I would like to become, I think, a mentor of sorts, or like each time I had really enjoyed the profession was when I could use my skills to genuinely build someone's confidence up, or to genuinely help them become better at their skills. Very recently, I was also judging the moot rounds at the university. And I was speaking to the participant. And the best part was giving the feedback and helping them build their performance and confidence, telling them, you know what, you're really great there. And all you need to do is this. And then you will see your performance build up. And the smile it brings to somebody's face when you tell them that, oh my God, I'm so good. And all I need to do is this. And I'll be like there. I think that just brings me a lot of joy. And my chosen medium, I think, is writing, which is why I think storytelling is very, very important for me. Because I want people to read the stories first and go back thinking, okay, wow, I feel very validated. In some way, this has built me up and it has made me feel more confident about myself. It has made me feel more okay with being who I am, which I think is very important at workplace, because one thing I've noticed about workplace is at the end of the day, we do have like a certain expectation. Everything. You can imagine different workplaces as mini societies, and all these workplaces have like their own mini expectations. And if you don't have that grounding before you go into a workplace, who am I and what is unique about me? Sometimes you can feel that sense gets lost in trying to conform to an expectation. And I had this conversation with a great mentor person at work once, and she said, really great thing that has stuck to me always. You only got to see yourself as meeting the basics requirements of a job. That's the only thing that you need to hold yourself to. Everything around that is an expression of your authenticity and creativity that nobody can take from you. And that, I think, has been one of the most powerful things anybody has ever said to me. She's a fantastic lady in the space, and I have like tremendous respect for her. And I think the fact that she said that made me understand what authenticity at work really means, where I need to be expressing it, and where the boundaries are drawn, which I think sometimes you're not you're not told these things, right? And you've got to figure themselves out. But once you figure that out, it really helps you embrace yourself and you embrace your unique personality and set yourself up for performing in the way that suits you the best.
Yeah, yeah, and just the ability to express yourself in that way releases so much more in terms of your potential to actually perform in those areas, isn't it?
Yes, of course. And I think that is super important. And it's good that you brought out potential, because that was the other thing I felt, that what's really key in utilizing our potential. Of course, there is effort and there is consistency and there's discipline, etc., etc. But you really need to, at the end of the day, be okay expressing yourself for who you are. And like, if you don't embrace the podcaster in you, if you don't embrace the questioner in you, if you don't embrace the problem solver in you, or if you don't embrace the challenger in you, you would never be able to set yourself on the path that's truly meant for you. And just to embrace that, for some people, can require breaking away from a lot of stigma, stereotypes in itself. Like for me, the step to take a career break in itself was very powerful, because there is still some sort of a stigma attached to career breaks. Because when I was taking a career break, some people did question, like, oh, isn't it too early in your career to take a career break? But for me, the logic is, there's nothing is too early. Like, if somebody sprains an ankle, you would advise them to rest, right? Like, similarly, your hopes, aspirations, dreams, they're the same thing. And same for your health. Like, whatever makes you feel that it's time for me to pause and reflect and do something that I'm really passionate about, or take some time out for, is a good enough reason to take a step out in the unknown and explore it. And hopefully that is one of the key things to realize your potential.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess there's two main outcomes of that as well, isn't there? One, you realise maybe that thing you were doing wasn't for you, and that's the opportunity. For everyone's good, you are now stepping away and doing something different. Or with a lot of people, it reignites the passion in what they're doing, doesn't it? Just the ability to step back. You hear a lot in sports, in a lot of things where people have been out from injuries or out for whatever reason, and they go, I can't wait to get back in the game, whatever that game is for you. So it can spark that and reignite that passion in you, or it can actually help you realise that this isn't a passion and maybe I'm not going to be able to give my all. So it's best for everyone to step back.
Yeah, totally. I think so. And I think that's the thing. There's a lot of pressure, or there's an element of like spiritual wisdom, I would say, here as well, which I've tried to merge with corporate wisdom, is that sometimes there's a pressure that, go and like achieve it, race, and like achieve it now and do it later, on the assumption that a later date is going to come, that I'm still going to be there, or like still going to be alive 20 years later to do what I'm feeling very passionate to do now. And I think COVID somehow really made me at least question that nothing is for granted. I can't take my body for granted. I can't take my mental well-being for granted. I can't take the people around me for granted. I can't take the opportunities around me for granted. And once you realize that you can't take things for granted, you start becoming a bit more amenable to taking risks. Like I couldn't have imagined myself doing this 5 years, 3 years back, but I have done it now because I've learned that you can't take anything for granted. And the other thing is, for me, it has been very transformational as to what I have done, because it has given me an identity outside a lawyer and outside a job. And for me, that was so important. I felt like I always had this desire to write. Like, I've always been a writer. I've always written. In COVID, I self-published a short story online as well. So I've always had that bug in me. And to have an identity outside your work is very much having a voice outside your work. And I describe it very much as my journey from, you would say, like pride to dignity. It's like there is a certain thing you have, your job and everything, of course, is like dear to you, etc. But it's very much something that you keep changing, right? Like in your lives, you keep doing different things. And at the end of the day, it's still external to you. It's not something that's going to stay forever in your life. You're going to retire one day, you're going to leave something. But my writing is within me. Like, it stays with me. It's something that goes with me. It's come with me and it's gone with me. To get up every day and get involved in a process or something that's so inherent to you is just so empowering because nobody can take that from you, right? And it never goes away. And it's something that's purely yours. And that's given me so much, I would say it's just a distinct identity. And as you said, like passion, it might help you becoming more grounded in what you're doing, being, yes, this is what I'm doing, but I have a very safe space where I go to feel alive every day and come back and give my best to what I'm doing. And similarly, balance my passion with the rationality I develop in the other side. So yeah, it's a great thing to do, to cultivate something you're passionate about and like do it on the side just because of the intrinsic value in it.
Oh, wonderful. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about Peoplenovate in terms of who it helps, how it helps them? And I love what I love about it, and I've had a look at the peoplenovate.com website, and it's the format of storytelling that you've picked there. It's slightly different to a lot of how other things are presented in terms of either a blog or photos, videos, and things. There's a distinct thing about storytelling and how it helps people, isn't there?
Yes, I think so. Like as I said, like I am a big fan of stories and I'm a big fan of writing. I really enjoy writing, and I think stories are very powerful. And I think out of the vast majority of stories that are there, it's like what do you want to use your stories for? So if you see the stories that I have curated so far in the People Know It platform, these stories are stories that are meant to challenge a certain aspect of workplace, whether that be how we whether it's okay being vulnerable in office, whether what is it about why are certain people critical, why are certain people, why do they demonstrate a kind of different attachment style? Everything is geared towards helping us understand ourselves better, understand the people around us better, and understand this thing called life at workplace better. So that everybody who reads that goes back feeling either empowered or understands a bit more about how to ground themselves and make themselves a bit more people centric in their dealings at workplace. Because I think sometimes it's we are in business and we are there for profit, most of the people, like for profit businesses. But at the end of the day, people are the core of what drives anything, right? And for me, I think it's very important that everything starts from the people. And if you've got to start from the people, all policies, whether it be like organizational development or any sort, it first starts by understanding who is the person next to me, right? What is their story? What are they like? And how can I become emotionally intelligent enough to make sure that we work in a way that's conducive for them? It's about creating that emotionally intelligent space where you can come together to create a workplace experience that's nurturing and that's pushing everybody towards realizing their maximum potential in whatever that might be, and giving them an experience where they can really express themselves without feeling judged. So I think to embrace acceptance of people for who they are, and giving them that safe platform, create that awareness is how these stories started. So that's the aim. So I guess in terms of who it helps, my aim was I wanted young people to read it and go back feeling validated and a bit more confident in their own voice, and develop that own voice within themselves. I wanted senior leadership to read it and maybe understand that, okay, I understand that junior person better, or I understand my senior colleague better, or I understand my own challenges better as to why I am acting in this way. And somehow in those stories, I try and or I try and curate links or hints as to what the solution might be to the problem that I've picked up. Somewhere in there lies a solution. And I hope that is something that gets picked up and genuinely helps people develop a better understanding of how to deal with certain challenges, which we may not be comfortable talking about, but we're all happy reading about and implementing it. So.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful! And the you mentioned curation there. Is the idea of this platform that it curates a lot of different story content? Is it to be a platform for your own content alone? How do you see it moving forward?
Yeah, so I would very much like the idea currently is to make it a place where more people can talk about their stories, to give people a voice in the way they understand it. So bring certain stories out, but with the purpose that the stories have built other people up. So pick up a theme and talk about how that thing can be solved or how that challenge can be navigated. And it seems like a very brilliant way of navigating a common issue.
Right.
So that's the next aim for growth, in terms of many aims that I have for the platform, is to develop it into a community forum where more people can bring, it can serve as an aggregation of a bunch of stories from different viewpoints. Because I can only speak so much, but it benefits when lots of people speak from their own experiences to build a collective that informs and is representative of every person. So that's very much the aim.
Oh, lovely. And if we flip this around a little bit in terms of how do you get help with your performance? You know, who helps you, and where do you go to make sure that you're at the top of your game?
Yes, so I think and I'll give you this with reference to like my journey throughout, like from university to uh, my work experience. It started with, of course, having like a great mother who was always there to position you and like set the right goals for you and point you in the right direction, which I immensely benefited from having a strong mother figure. And that got supplemented by having great peers always, teachers and peers. And here I think it's very important because I talk about this when I come to the workplace. Peers who came around and like motivated you and gave you strategies, saw where you were great at, saw what's holding you back, and gave you the support that you needed to up your game. And that has happened for me multiple times at university with like subjects or preparing for various moot court competitions, international competitions, etc. When I came to workplace during my training contract or when I was working as an associate, what really always helped me was when I'm clear on my goals, which comes from within, but having really good mentorship from people. Like the best of my experiences have been with people when I was mentored really well, when I was told that, okay, this is where you are and this is what you're doing great, and now this is where you need to go. And those experiences were what really helped me up my game. And the areas and the only times that I've always felt like, okay, this day was off was when I genuinely wasn't able to strike a relationship with the people I was working with and I couldn't connect with. And that also got me thinking, like, what makes you connect with somebody and what makes you not connect with somebody? Like, what is it? Like, because it's a huge problem at workplace. Like, a lot of people, some people say that, oh, we have had this great connections at workplace, and some people haven't had it. And each time I felt you connect a lot when you take the risk of being vulnerable in some sorts, like when you open up about something, which is why I think that this whole thing of perfection and being like the Stanford duck doesn't help, because you never give that space to open up and really understand who you are and who your colleagues are. And you're not really able to like give them the kind of nudge they need to see within themselves or where they need to go. And I think that's really crucial because whenever I have felt completely transformed at workplace or like my skills have developed, it has mostly been by relationship as a mentor to somebody who's senior to me, or by a connection to a peer has a bunch of skills that I still need to be working on. And I think peer mentoring is great. Mentored by somebody who is maybe like 2 to 3 steps ahead of your game. And that's great because when you are being mentored by someone who's 10 steps ahead of your game, it's great to set goals. But then that great accountability comes from somebody who's 2 to 3 steps ahead because you're not intimidated by them. You can strike a very friendly bond with them. And that's good enough for you to still keep you motivated, right? Fantastic, which is why I think a good model in all workplaces shouldn't just be focused on one person doing all the work. It's not possible. It's too much pressure on one person, and everybody has their own thing to do. The more we start mentoring each other, the better chances we have of really performing well, because what we do in that process is create a really good supportive community. And that's so helpful knowing that I can rely on this peer to ace that skill. I can rely on that peer to ace that skill. That I found super helpful.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, definitely echo that element of, certainly people who are just 1 or 2 steps ahead. It can help the goal setting, people who've achieved everything you want to achieve and have moved very far ahead of you is wonderful for a motivational goal setting side of things, but actually that peer mentoring or somebody who's only one or two steps on the ladder, they're the ones who've lived very recently. They've lived that experience of what it actually takes to move up to those couple of steps, isn't it? So it brings a sense of reality to what, an achievability to what's going on.
Exactly. And they are the most familiar with the challenges you face, because at least I feel that now that I'm like 5 years out of university, and when I speak to some, and I studied law for 5 years, grueling, it was like absolutely grueling. In India, it's super competitive. And studying for those like medals and stuff was always like really, really taxing. So sometimes I feel that I do lose touch with what people struggle with when they are going through that process, because I'm so far ahead in my career now, or in my life now. I've sometimes forgotten like what it was like being that student. But I'm sure it was stressful for me there. Of course, 10 years down the line, benefit of hindsight, you're like, oh, why are you stressing about this? This is so easy. Why can you get that? But that's not there when you are just like two steps ahead, because you're like, I have lived through, I know what you're talking, I validate you, do this. And that is sometimes that is what you need, and that you can't get from a mentor who's 10 steps ahead of you.
Oh, great stuff. And let's ask a couple of different questions now in terms of if you could help any individual, group, or organisation with the skill set that you've got, maybe with the platform that you've got, who would you want that to be?
Yes, I was thinking about this, and I think I would really like to help people who are in their early stage careers, who are just setting foot into corporate world, or are like 1 or 2 years into the corporate world. I would really like to start helping them, especially women, and I would like to help them with giving them a primer as to what is it like to be in the corporate space, and what is it like to navigate the corporate space. Because I was lucky when I entered, that there were some amazing people who helped me, but there were also a number of lessons I learned the hard way. Like for everybody is the case, some lessons come easy, some lessons come the hard way. And I think it's really important to pass those lessons on to young people while they are when they enter, so that they feel better equipped and prepared. Like one thing I've realized is that it's all a game of, you have to be really confident in what you're presenting. And sometimes that confidence comes from experience, but also from being really equipped to handle the space that you're being asked to navigate. And that requires quality guidance and quality advice. So I think I would really like to help that demographic, particularly women, and women coming from diverse backgrounds, whatever that diversity is for them. Like they could be neurotypical, they could be coming from there could be a gender element, there could be a sexual diversity element, whatever that is, but somehow who feel that there is a differentiating factor, and equipping them with the right knowledge so that they feel confident in traversing the space. So I think that would be something I'm really, really.
Yeah, nice. And if we were to flip that on its head then and say, if you were to sit down and have a coffee, have a drink or a meal with somebody in order to learn from them, who would you want that to be?
Well, I would. So I'm very much somebody who likes to have a board of advisors. Because I really like to consult with many people, because as I said, like I really think everybody has something to teach. So if I had to curate my dream board, who I would love to have coffee with and learn all the life lessons, it would include number one, Taylor Swift
Right.
from the music industry, because I think I really applaud her for the way she has reinvented her over and over again, and has set such a powerful example of what success looks like in the business industry. And her work, which I think is a learning lesson for many people in terms of the vulnerability that she brings in her work as an artist. So I think her growth as an artist, especially from like country to pop, has been very interesting. Next, of course, would be someone from the sports world, and I would pick an Indian sports person. Her name is Mary Kom, and she has a very interesting journey, and her journey is like fantastic. She's a boxer,
Right.
uh, and she's achieved great things for the country. Again, like the way she set on her mission and what motivated her. And sometimes you learn a lot of resilience and from athletes. So I think that's what I would love to learn from her resilience and her discipline. I would also like, if I wish, but since everything is possible in this
Of
world,
course.
Maya Angelou. because I love her work and I love the mission she had. And I think her work very much and her mission is very much something that builds so many people up in her life. So that would be one person. And the other person, of course, Oprah Winfrey, who has
Right.
a great example of that there is no barriers when it comes to achieving what you set your mind to achieve.
Yeah.
And she has built so many people up through her work, and she does fantastic work. And she's very people oriented, very people centered. So, yeah, these are amazing women who I'm sure will have so much to offer in terms of what it takes to follow your passion.
Yeah. I mean, just sitting down and listening to the questions that each one of those would ask of the other would be an interesting piece in its own right, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be great. So that's the thing, right? I learn from them and then I learn from their discussions with them. So it will be the best knowledge building session ever. So that's the thing, that's
Br-
the value. Yeah.
yeah. Brilliant tactic. Yeah, a few of my guests have used that tactic of the sort of dream dinner party or a group of people, and it's amazing how much you can learn from one individual. But if you can learn from a group of individuals and how they interact, that'd be a superb piece as well.
Yeah.
So how do people find out more, and how do they find out more about Peoplenovate, and where do they go to connect with you?
Well, come to the website, peoplenovate.com, check it out. And of course, let me know what emotions it sparks and what it makes you think and what you would like to read more there, because it's a platform for the people. It's meant to support the people, and the mission. So I would love to curate it. Of course, I have my own vision for the platform, how I want to develop it. But if I can build something up based on what you would like to see it, that would be an utmost privilege for me to do so. And I would be open to do that. I take feedback on board. So yes, do that. And if you'd like to connect with me personally, then connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'd be very happy to chat you through as to what I have in mind for the platform and how we can collaborate. So, and you could be anybody. You could be a junior, you could be a mid-level, or you could be an organization leadership position. I'm more than happy to talk to you and how we can together bring more nurture into workspace.
Oh, wonderful. And as always, those links will be in the show notes so that everybody can have access to them. Massive thanks for sharing your story today, Saniya, and really looking forward to see where Peoplenovate can go and read some of the stories that are on there. The ones that I have dabbled into so far have been truly inspirational. So keep up the great work, and thanks for coming on.
No, thank you so much. And thank you for having a platform like this, which I think is serving such a great purpose of bringing like-minded people and talking about an issue which many people are passionate about and is so important. And I think I was very inspired reading about your podcast. And I can only congratulate you for taking the time out, because having set out on this journey of creating, I know how time consuming it is, and you can't do it unless you have a real passion for it.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for doing it. And I love the good work. And yeah, you have I'm your cheerleader, so yeah, cheerleader on. So
Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you and your success again in the future.
yeah, let's see which direction it takes. But yeah, I'll be cheering you on.
All right, thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.